The Kelvari High Command celebration was, by all galactic standards, premature. But how could we know? Our tactical algorithms had predicted a 99.8% probability of human surrender within the next solar cycle. Their main fleet had been reduced to scattered remnants. Their orbital defense platforms vaporized. Communications networks severed. We had even taken their precious Luna base, the jewel of their extraplanetary ambitions. Another round of fermented nectars for the conquering heroes, Admiral Jorik bellowed, his voice carrying across the observation deck of the flagship Inevitable Dominance, his secondary breathing sacs inflated with pride as he gazed at the blue-green planet on the viewscreen. I, Sub-Commander Ranak Tuul, stood at attention beside him, my four-fingered hands clasped tightly behind my back. Unlike my superiors, I found no joy in our supposed victory. Perhaps it was my years studying human behavior during my time as a cultural analyst before the war. Perhaps it was something else. A feeling, as the humans would say. And my feeling was unsettled. Sir, I ventured, clearing my throat canal with a soft click. Might I suggest we maintain full alert status until formal surrender documents are signed? Admiral Jorik turned all three of his eyes toward me, the vertical pupil in each narrowing to thin slits. Sub-Commander Tuul, always the pessimist. He laughed, a gurgling sound that made his neck ridges vibrate. Look at the data. Their infrastructure is crippled, their leadership is in disarray. What more could they possibly do? Throw rocks at our ships? The other officers laughed. I did not. Sir, with respect, we have only engaged with their conventional forces. Our intelligence suggests. Intelligence. Interrupted Fleet Commander Vax, sloshing his drink as he approached. The same intelligence that failed to predict their ambush at Proxima Centauri. The same intelligence that lost us the Ganymede mining colony? He leaned in close enough that I could smell the sweet sour stench of fermented nectar on his breath. Your problem, Tuul, is that you have spent too much time studying humans. You have started thinking like them. Paranoid. Emotional. I maintained my composure. The humans have a saying, Commander, it's not paranoia if they are really out to get you. This generated another round of laughter, louder this time. See? He even quotes them now. Vax turned to the Admiral. Perhaps we should check Sub-Commander Tuul for human DNA contamination. He might be going native on us. The Admiral waved a dismissive hand. Enough. Tuul's caution, while excessive, comes from a place of duty. Now, let us enjoy our victory. He raised his glass. To the glorious Kelvari Hegemony. May our dominion stretch from one spiral arm to the next. Into the hegemony. The officers chorused. I raised my glass but did not drink. My attention was fixed on the planetary display, where unusual energy signatures were beginning to appear at scattered points across the North American continent. Probably just atmospheric disturbances from our orbital bombardment. Probably. 3 solar cycles later, I was awakened by the piercing wail of battle stations' klaxons. I was out of my sleeping chamber and into my uniform in 17 seconds flat, a personal best that no one would ever care about if we were under attack. I rushed to the command center, where chaos reigned. Officers shouted over each other, while tactical displays flashed urgent red warnings. Report. I demanded of the nearest communications officer, Sir, we have lost contact with the unyielding Resolve and the Stellar Dominion. Our ground forces in what the humans call Colorado and Montana have gone silent. Orbital surveillance shows what, officer? Massive energy signatures, sir, like nothing we have encountered before. They are taking out our ships one by one. I pushed past him to see the tactical display. It couldn't be. We had neutralized their anti-orbital defense capabilities in the first wave. There was nothing in our intelligence suggesting they had weapons that could threaten our capital ships. Admiral Jorik burst into the command center, his uniform hastily fastened, his normally immaculate head crest disheveled. What in the 7 moons of Kelvara is happening? He roared. The tactical officer, a young female named Trisla, spoke without taking her eyes off her console. Sir, we are detecting numerous launches from Earth's surface. They appear to be missiles, but with propulsion systems unlike anything in our database. Impossible, Jorik snapped. We destroyed their missile silos in the first strike. Apparently not all of them, sir, I said quietly. The view screen showed a terrifying sight. Trails of blue-white light streaked upward from Earth's surface, dozens, then hundreds of them. Our ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but the missiles adjusted course with impossible agility. They are tracking our ships through our own shield frequencies, Trisla reported, her voice rising in pitch. Each missile it's adaptive, sir. They are learning from each hit. I watched in horror as the glorious Purpose, our newest dreadnought, was struck by 5 missiles simultaneously. Its shields flared brilliant purple, then collapsed. A 6th missile hit its exposed hull, and the massive ship broke apart in a silent explosion. That's 3,000 crew members, someone whispered. Admiral Jorik's face had drained of color, his normally vibrant green skin now a sickly pale jade. How? How could they have such weapons? Our intelligence. Our intelligence was wrong, I interrupted, no longer concerned with protocol. The humans compartmentalized their defense research. What we discovered was only what they wanted us to find. You knew? Jorik turned to me, his eyes wide. I suspected, I corrected. Humans have a long history of technological leaps during wartime. They call it necessity is the mother of invention. I tried to warn. A violent shudder ran through the ship, throwing several officers to the floor. A direct hit to decks 17 through 22, Trisla called out. Shields at 63% and dropping. Return fire, Jorik ordered. Target their launch sites. Sir, I said, our weapons can't penetrate their new defensive fields. They have adapted somehow. And target their cities. If they want to fight dirty, we will show them what real devastation looks like. I stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, escalation is exactly what they want. If we target civilian populations, they will have moral justification to use their full arsenal against us. We don't know what else they might be hiding. Another impact rocked the ship. Shields at 41%. Trisla reported. Sir, we are detecting energy buildup at the human facility designated DARPA Gamma site. The tactical display showed a massive energy signature growing in what had once been a barren desert in the southwestern United States. Evasive maneuvers. Jorik ordered, full power to engines. Too late. A beam of coherent energy, blindingly bright even on the filtered view screen, lanced up from Earth's surface. It struck our sister ship, the inevitable Dominance, amidships. The massive vessel, pride of the Kelvari fleet, didn't explode. It simply came apart, as if the molecular bonds holding it together had suddenly decided to take the day off. The command center fell silent. The inevitable Dominance had carried over 12,000 Kelvari, our best and brightest. Sir, the communications officer said, breaking the stunned silence. We are receiving a transmission. From Earth. Admiral Jorik seemed to have aged a decade in the past few minutes. Put it through, he said, his voice barely audible. The view screen changed to show a human female. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia. Her hair was gray, her face lined with age, but her eyes burned with an intensity that made me take an involuntary step back. This is General Laura Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force, she said, her voice calm and measured. You have witnessed a demonstration of a fraction of our defensive capabilities. The weapons we have deployed today were developed specifically to counter Kelvari technology after we detected your fleet approaching our system 3 Earth years ago. Admiral Jorik straightened his posture. This is Admiral Jorik of the Kelvari Hegemony. Your resistance is noted, but futile. For every ship you destroy, we can send 10 more. The human's expression didn't change. Can you, Admiral? Are you certain about that? Because we have just transmitted the specifications of our new weapons to your homeworld's rebel factions. A collective gasp went through the command center. You are bluffing, Jorik said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Check your long-range communications, Admiral," General Hayes replied. "You will find that your encryption has been compromised for some time. We have been listening, learning, preparing." Trisla worked frantically at her console, then looked up, her face ashen. "Sir, she's telling the truth. Our secure channels, they are wide open." I closed my eyes briefly. Of course. The humans hadn't just been developing weapons, they'd been waging information warfare the entire time. "What do you want?" Admiral Jorik asked, defeat evident in every syllable. General Hayes leaned forward slightly. "Unconditional withdrawal from Earth space, reparations for the colonies you destroyed, and a binding non-aggression pact enforced by the deployment of our new defensive systems around every human settlement. And if we refuse, then we finish what you started. Admiral, we have studied your society extensively. We know about the political instability within the hegemony. We know about the resource shortages on your core worlds. How do you think your government will fare when we provide your oppressed outer colonies with the means to defend themselves?" She paused. "We don't want to destroy you, Admiral. That's the difference between us. You came here for conquest. We just want to be left alone." Another violent impact shook the ship. Shields at 22%. Trisla called out. Multiple missile locks detected. "Admiral," I said urgently, "we need to make a decision." Jorik looked broken, his proud bearing shattered. "Cease fire," he ordered. "Stand down all weapons." General Hayes nodded. "A wise choice, Admiral. Transmission coordinates for our diplomatic team will follow. Hayes out." The screen went dark, leaving us staring at the blue-green planet that had just brought the mighty Kelvari Hegemony to its knees. "How did we get it so wrong?" Jorik whispered, more to himself than anyone else. I stepped beside him, watching as our remaining ships disengaged, retreating to a higher orbit. "We underestimated them, sir. We saw their divisions, their conflicts, their seemingly primitive emotional responses, and we thought them weak." I shook my head. "But we failed to understand that these very traits are what make them dangerous. Humans don't fight like we do, for abstract concepts of expansion and dominion. They fight for their homes, their families, their way of life. You sound like you admire them, Sub-Commander." "I respect them, sir. There's a difference." I gestured to the view screen, "and I think we'd better start learning a lot more about them, very quickly. Because this isn't over." "No," Admiral Jorik agreed, his voice hollow. "I suspect it's only just beginning." As if to punctuate his words, another Kelvari cruiser in our formation erupted in flames, its reactor core breached by human missiles. They had let us think the fight was over. But the humans? They were just getting warmed up. The diplomatic vessel Tenuous Accord was, by Kelvari standards, modest and functional. By human standards, based on their barely concealed expressions of awe, it was absurdly opulent. The contrast said everything about our two species. "The human delegation will arrive in approximately 7 minutes," announced Lieutenant Prell, our protocol officer. "Sub-Commander Tuul, the Admiral requests your presence during negotiations due to your unique perspective." I nodded, straightening my formal uniform with its newly attached insignia. After the catastrophic first contact with Earth's hidden defenses 3 cycles ago, I had been promoted to commander. Not because of any great achievement on my part, but because most of the command structure above me was now scattered across Earth's orbit in very small pieces. "Tell me, Lieutenant," I asked as we walked toward the central meeting chamber, "what is your assessment of these humans?" Prell's head crest flattened in distaste. "Primitive, emotional, and unpredictable, but dangerous like a cornered predator. The sooner we conclude these negotiations and return to Kelvari space, the better." I smiled thinly. "You might want to avoid expressing such sentiments during the meeting. The humans have excellent intuition for detecting insincerity. How could they possibly? Micro-expressions, Lieutenant. Subtle shifts in posture, pupil dilation, vocal tone, things our species largely evolved without, given our historical focus on group cohesion rather than individual deception. I paused at the entrance to the meeting chamber. The humans evolved as both predator and prey. They learned to detect lies as a survival mechanism. Prell's secondary breathing sacs inflated slightly, a sign of agitation. You almost sound like you are defending them. Understanding isn't defense, Lieutenant. It's intelligence. And right now, intelligence is what we desperately need. The meeting chamber doors slid open to reveal Admiral Jorik already seated at the massive obsidian table, flanked by our remaining senior officers. His scales had lost their luster since the battle, and the proud ridge along his spine seemed to droop slightly. Defeat did not sit well on Kelvari's shoulders. Commander Tuul, he acknowledged me with a curt nod. Take position to my left. You will serve as our cultural interpreter. I bowed slightly and took my assigned seat. The chair felt uncomfortably prestigious. A week ago I would have been stationed 3 places down, if present at all. Sir, I ventured, perhaps we should discuss our negotiation strategy before. Our strategy is to minimize losses and extract our forces with whatever dignity remains, Jorik snapped. The High Command has been explicit. We are to secure a withdrawal agreement and nothing more. I blinked all 3 of my eyes in succession, a gesture of surprise that I couldn't suppress. Nothing more. Sir, with respect, this is an unprecedented opportunity to establish diplomatic relations with a species that has demonstrated technological capabilities beyond our understanding. We should be seeking knowledge exchange, cultural. Enough. Jorik's fist slammed against the table. The humans humiliated us, Commander. They allowed us to believe we had won, then revealed weapons specifically designed to counter our most advanced technology. The High Command views them as an existential threat, not a potential ally. I drew back, startled by his vehemence. An existential threat we provoked by invading their system without provocation. A dangerous silence fell over the chamber. The other officers stared at me, as if I'd suddenly sprouted human appendages. Watch yourself, Commander, Jorik said quietly. Such talk borders on sympathy for the enemy. Before I could respond, the chamber's announcement system chimed. Human delegation approaching Docking Bay 2. The tension in the room shifted from me to the imminent arrival of our adversaries? Negotiating partners? I wasn't sure what to call them anymore. 10 minutes later, the humans entered. There were 5 of them, a surprisingly small delegation given the stakes. General Hayes led them, her silver hair pulled back severely, her uniform adorned with what I recognized as service medals rather than rank insignia. It was subtle but telling difference in how our cultures viewed military achievement. Behind her walked a tall male with dark skin and a completely hairless head, carrying what appeared to be an analog data case. Actual physical documents, how quaint. Next came 2 females, one with copper-colored hair who moved with the precise economy of a trained combatant, and another with features suggesting ancestry from the human geographic region called Asia, wearing what appeared to be civilian attire rather than a uniform. The 5th human was different. Male, younger than the others, with an odd device attached to his temple and eyes that seemed to flicker with internal light. Some kind of cybernetic enhancement, perhaps. Our intelligence had indicated humans were experimenting with machine-organic interfaces, but nothing this advanced. Admiral Jorik, General Hayes said, inclining her head slightly. Not a bow, but an acknowledgement between equals. Thank you for hosting these discussions. Jorik rose, performing the minimal courtesy gesture required by Kelvari protocol. General Hayes. Let us proceed efficiently. We have much to discuss and little desire to prolong this interaction. If Hayes was offended by his brusqueness, she didn't show it. Of course. Allow me to introduce my team. Dr. Thomas Okafor, our diplomatic liaison, Major Alexa Donovan, Security Chief, Dr. Mai Takahashi, Xenobiologist, and Mr. Elliot Barnes, our Technology Specialist. The young male with the temple device, Barnes, smiled at me directly. Commander Tuul, I believe? Your cultural analysis reports on human behavior were particularly insightful, especially your observations on our tendency toward irrational optimism in the face of overwhelming odds. Quite perceptive. I stiffened. Those reports had been highly classified. The fact that this human knew about them confirmed what Hayes had claimed. Our communications security had been thoroughly compromised. You have done your homework, I replied, trying to match his casual tone. So did you, Barnes said, his smile unwavering. Just not enough. Admiral Jorik cleared his throat loudly. If we could proceed to the matters at hand? Of course, Hayes said, taking her seat. The others followed suit. We have prepared a draft agreement for your consideration. Dr. Okafor opened his case and distributed actual physical documents, paper, I realized with mild surprise, to each of us. How wonderfully archaic, and yet unhackable. Perhaps not so primitive after all. I scanned the document, my translator implant converting the human language to Kelvari text. The terms were surprisingly reasonable. Complete withdrawal of Kelvari forces from Sol system, yes, but with a generous timetable allowing for orderly retreat. Reparations for destroyed colonies, but calculated based on material damage rather than punitive multipliers. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over not just Earth but all current and future settlements within 50 light-years of their home system. These terms are less severe than anticipated, Admiral Jorik said cautiously. Hayes nodded. We are not interested in revenge, Admiral. Only security. And yet, I noted, you have demanded access to certain aspects of our propulsion technology that goes beyond security concerns. Dr. Takahashi, the xenobiologist, spoke for the first time. Not at all, Commander. Your faster-than-light capabilities exceed ours. If we cannot match your travel speed, we cannot ensure our security through rapid response to future aggression. Logical. Unnervingly so. The negotiations continued for hours. Technical details were discussed, boundaries established, protocols defined. Throughout it all, I found myself watching the young human Barnes. While the others engaged actively, he remained oddly passive, those strange eyes constantly moving, observing. Occasionally he would touch the device at his temple, and I could swear I saw data scrolling across his pupils. During a brief recess, I approached him as he stood alone by the observation port, staring out at Earth below us. Mr. Barnes, I said, joining him at the viewport. If I might ask, what is your actual role here? You have contributed little to the discussions. He smiled, that unsettling smile again. I'm here to listen, Commander Tuul, and to remember. Remember what exactly? Everything. He tapped the device at his temple. Every word, every micro-expression, every physiological response from your delegation, heart rates, pupil dilations, pheromone releases, the things your species uses to communicate among yourselves that you think we can't detect. I felt a chill run down my spine ridge. You are monitoring us? During a peace negotiation? Peace, but verify, Commander, an old human saying, slightly modified. His eyes flickered again with that strange internal light. Did you know your Admiral's cardiovascular patterns show extreme stress whenever we mention inspections of your remaining ships? Fascinating physiological response. Almost as if he's hiding something. My breathing sacs constricted involuntarily. That's invasive, says the species that tried to invade our planet. His tone remained conversational, almost friendly. But here's what I find most interesting about you, Commander Tuul. Unlike your colleagues, your physiological responses suggest genuine curiosity rather than fear or hostility. You actually want to understand us. I hesitated, then decided honesty might be the best approach. I have studied your species for years. Your adaptability, your creativity in crisis, they are remarkable traits. Traits that saved us from extinction at your hands. Yes. Barnes turned from the viewport to face me directly. Would you like to know how we did it? How we developed weapons that could penetrate your supposedly impenetrable shields? How we cracked your unbreakable encryption? Yes, I would. We cheated. He grinned. When we detected your fleet approaching 3 years ago, we didn't just develop new weapons. We found your weakness, which was arrogance. The smile disappeared. You broadcast your tactical communications using quantum-entangled particles, believing the method to be theoretically uninterceptable. But you failed to consider that we might have captured some of your entangled communication nodes during early skirmishes at our outer colonies. My third heart nearly stopped. Impossible. Those nodes self-destruct if tampered with. They are supposed to, yes, but we didn't tamper with them. We built a containment field that tricked them into believing they were still in your possession. Once we had working nodes, we could listen to everything. Battle plans, shield frequencies, encryption keys. He shrugged. The rest was just engineering. Before I could respond, the chamber doors opened and the others began filing back in. Barnes gave me one last look. Anyway, just something to think about, Commander. Knowledge is a better defense than any weapon. The final session proceeded quickly. Admiral Jorik, seemingly eager to conclude matters, raised few objections to the remaining terms. When the agreement was finally ready, General Hayes produced an antique fountain pen, actual liquid ink applied to paper, for the signing ceremony. A human tradition, she explained. Important agreements are signed with permanent ink, not digital signatures. Something about the physicality of the act reminds us of its weight. As Jorik signed, I noticed Barnes watching him intently, that device on his temple glowing slightly brighter. What was he measuring? What was he seeing that I couldn't? When the ceremony concluded, Hayes approached me directly while the others exchanged formal pleasantries. "Commander Tuul," she said, "a word in private, if I may." Curious, I followed her to a small alcove away from the others. "I have read your assessments of human culture," she said without preamble. "Your insights were remarkably accurate for an outsider." "Thank you, General. Which is why I want to offer you a position." I blinked rapidly in confusion. "A position?" "Earth is establishing a new diplomatic corps specifically focused on non-human civilizations. We need individuals with cross-cultural expertise. Your understanding of both Kelvari and human psychology would be invaluable." I stared at her, unable to formulate a response. "You are offering me a job? After we tried to conquer your planet?" Hayes smiled slightly. "Not you specifically, Commander. And we believe in judging individuals by their actions, not their species' mistakes. Your reports consistently advocated for cultural exchange rather than military confrontation. You were right. Your superiors were wrong. I would be seen as a traitor, perhaps, or perhaps as a visionary. The first Kelvari to truly understand that the future lies in cooperation, not conquest." She handed me a small data chip. "Our contact protocols, should you decide your talents would be better utilized building bridges rather than burning them." Before I could respond, Admiral Jorik called sharply from across the chamber. "Commander Tuul, we are departing." Hayes nodded respectfully and rejoined her team. I stood frozen, the data chip heavy in my hand. As our delegation prepared to return to the flagship, Jorik pulled me aside, his voice low and threatening. "What did the human want with you?" I hesitated, then straightened my posture. "She offered me an opportunity to learn, Admiral, something our species might consider more often." His eyes narrowed. "Watch yourself, Tuul. The High Command will be looking for scapegoats for this disaster. Don't make yourself an obvious target." 3 days later, as our damaged fleet limped toward the jump point that would begin our long journey home, I stood alone in my quarters, staring at the data chip Hayes had given me. My career, my loyalty, my very identity as a Kelvari, all balanced against the possibility of something new, something perhaps better. On my view screen, Earth slowly receded, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. Home to a species that had allowed us to believe victory was within our grasp, only to reveal